After 2 decades of fieldwork, ecologist Francisco Palomares finally got the chance to put the biggest idea of his career to the test. In 2009, 9 captive-bred Iberian lynx were set free in Córdoba, in a region where the species had not been seen for decades. The plan was modest at first, simply to give the world's most threatened cat a chance to build new populations. But when Palomares and his team went through the images from their camera traps, they found something that appeared to break every rule. Not even they could account for it. Wherever the lynx claimed territory, invasive animals that Spain had struggled for years to keep in check dropped in number by as much as 80%. And then, only a week later, something even odder occurred. A species nobody expected to find there showed up out of nowhere. How could one cat untangle 3 of Spain's toughest ecological knots? For most of the 20th century, Iberian lynx were shot, snared, and poisoned as people tried to erase them entirely. Spanish law even paid a reward for each dead lynx, though a single animal earned only 3.75 pesetas, less than 1 day's pay. By 2001, roughly 62 breeding adults were left, split between 2 cut-off populations in Donana and Andújar. Yet even once protection began, the cats kept vanishing. The explanation was straightforward. There was too little to eat. The Iberian lynx cannot swap its prey the way a wolf or a bear can. European rabbits account for something like 85 to 95% of what it eats, and a breeding female must take down 1 to 3 rabbits a day. In 1952, myxomatosis reached Spain, and in only 3 years, it wiped out over 95% of the rabbits across the Iberian Peninsula. By the 2010s, a fresh strain of rabbit hemorrhagic disease was killing wild and vaccinated rabbits alike, with a death rate of 70 to 90%. In Donana, rabbit numbers crashed by more than 80%. Once rabbit populations fell by 60 to 70%, lynx breeding success sank by roughly 65%. Worn down by hunger, the cats stopped raising young and slowly faded from the landscape. At the same time, invasive Egyptian mongooses and a growing population of red foxes were turning up at unusually high densities, pressing steadily on the ecosystem. As the years passed, the lynx began taking them as prey of opportunity. It is not hard to see why lynx would push down mongoose and fox numbers. What made no sense was this. When Palomares and his team put lynx back on the land in 2014, rabbit numbers did not fall. They climbed. How can an animal built to hunt rabbits end up rescuing the rabbits themselves? That is what we will unpack next. The truth is that when the rabbits vanished, the damage reached far past a hungry cat. European rabbits are also key ecosystem engineers in Spain. Their tunnels loosen and aerate the soil. Their grazing carves the land into a mosaic of thick scrub and open clearings that more than 40 vertebrate species rely on. The Spanish imperial eagle, the red kite, and the thick-leaved clover are all on that list. Once the rabbits were gone, the scrubland stopped working. In a very literal way, it died, because the animal that had built and maintained that system was missing. Spain grasped this, and the country rolled out conservation programs on a scale never attempted before. For decades, officials tried nearly every route back to a healthy rabbit population. The Spanish government put more than 100 million euros into rebuilding rabbit breeding facilities, restoring over 10,000 hectares of scrub, setting up supplementary feeding sites, and running vaccination campaigns. Put bluntly, it did not work. The diseases stayed loose. The shelters were poorly suited to the animals, and red foxes and Egyptian mongooses kept raiding the warrens, taking the young before any colony could settle into steady breeding. But hold on, what about a completely different approach? If Spain was short of rabbits, why not ship them in from somewhere overflowing with them? New Zealand and Chile both carry huge introduced rabbit populations, and Australia alone holds around 200 million. Even though these are the very same species, the European rabbit, in Australia, they became an ecological catastrophe. All the same, Spain could not simply turn Australian rabbits loose to repair its own countryside. Those rabbits have drifted genetically and carry a long list of dangerous pathogens, some of them released deliberately by people trying to exterminate them. Importing them would pollute Spain's clean genetic stock and seed disease through its native rabbit colonies. And on the Australian side, rabbits are a staple food for red foxes and feral cats. Strip them away too fast, and those predators would simply switch to butchering native wildlife instead. This is one idea that should stay on paper. While fighting for the rabbits, Spain was also mounting a huge rescue effort for the lynx itself. Tens of millions of euros went into Iberian lynx conservation. From the mid-1990s onward, the European Union's LIFE programs paid for breeding centers, carefully matched pairings, GPS collars, and the groundwork for releasing animals into the wild. By 2009, lynx kittens were arriving reliably in captivity. Yet once returned to open country, close to 52% of captive-born animals died, against roughly 29% of wild-born lynx. Their instincts were intact, but they had never fully learned to dodge traffic, people, illness, and the countless hazards outside a breeding pen. Then, in 2007, feline leukemia virus tore through the Donana population, killing about 2/3 of the animals it infected, and responsible for 38% of every recorded death between 2006 and 2011. Each time one problem was fixed, another opened up. By then, it was obvious that rabbits and lynx could not be treated as two unrelated puzzles. Palomares had reached that conclusion as far back as 1995, after he and his colleagues compared places where lynx still hung on with places where they had been lost. The figures showed that the ties between lynx, rabbits, and the other predators ran far deeper than anyone had assumed. Palomares came to see that rescuing the lynx would never come down to simply breeding more of them, and rescuing rabbits would never come down to digging more warrens or releasing more animals. What needed rebuilding was the whole web of relationships that had once held the landscape steady. As mentioned, by 2001, wild Iberian lynx clung on in just two places: Donana and the Sierra Morena Range. Divided by busy motorways, farmland, and empty stretches of ground, the two groups had no realistic hope of ever meeting. It was time for a genuine recovery campaign. Habitat came first. The new homes had to satisfy 4 hard requirements: a high enough density of rabbits, the right kind of scrub cover, the agreement of over 300 separate landowners, and more than 266,000 hectares falling inside the lynx's potential range. After long surveys, Guadalmelato in the province of Córdoba and Guaritzas in the province of Jaén were chosen. Both sat within the Sierra Morena ecological zone, yet neither had held a lynx for an entire generation. For Palomares and his colleagues, this was a natural experiment without precedent. For the first time, they could watch a single ecosystem both before and after its top predator came home. In 2009, captive-bred lynx were loaded into transport crates in Andalusia and driven to the release sites. Every Iberian lynx wears a one-of-a-kind coat. No two animals share the same layout of spots. Those markings work like fingerprints, and for years, researchers had photographed and cataloged each individual. GPS collars followed their movements. Camera traps set 500 meters apart logged their behavior. At first light, the crates were opened one after another. In a matter of weeks, the released cats had staked out home ranges. Males roamed widely. Females settled into territories inside 2 to 3 weeks. And then the camera traps in those territories began picking up something the teams had not seen in that landscape for many years: the cameras caught a peculiar shift. Where lynx turned up regularly, red foxes and Egyptian mongooses started abandoning the paths they had always used. They did not have to be chased or killed. Picking up the scent, the tracks, and the sheer presence of a stronger rival was enough to make them reroute and steer clear. Numbers of red foxes and Egyptian mongooses in the area dropped by roughly 80%, while wild rabbits and red-legged partridges slowly came back. Researchers calculated that the total number of rabbits eaten by the whole predator community fell by as much as 55.6%. Within a few months, warrens that had sat abandoned were showing fresh prints. Loose soil was piled at the entrances where something had been digging, and rabbit colonies finally had the breathing room to breed and hold steady. An ecological order that had looked gone for good was reassembling itself. And yet the lynx had never eased off. Rabbits still made up 85% of its diet. That single fact is what made the rabbit rebound so baffling. A predator came back. That predator ate rabbits. Rabbit numbers rose anyway. On its face, the logic collapses, but it holds up perfectly. Where a top predator is missing, mid-sized predators expand to fill the vacancy. In Mediterranean scrubland, the two that dominate are the red fox and the Egyptian mongoose. Both hit rabbits hard, and not only by killing them outright, they also break into warrens, wreck shelters, and apply relentless pressure that pushes rabbit colonies into moving rather than breeding. In lynx-free country, fox and mongoose activity ran consistently above normal within their ranges. That middle layer had swollen to occupy the empty seat at the top. Then, the lynx came back. Work by Palomares and his colleagues, published in the journal Biological Conservation, put numbers to what the cameras had captured across several release areas. Where lynx populations were established, red foxes and Egyptian mongooses were up to 10 times less abundant than in areas without them. The driving force was behavior. Foxes registered the top predator through scent and movement, then cleared out well before any face-to-face encounter. The Iberian lynx did not save rabbits by easing off its own hunting. It saved them by making the countryside too risky for predators that were even better at killing rabbits than it was. For decades, Spain had run rabbits and lynx as two separate files. Now, a single animal had settled both. So what was left? Growing the new population until the species could spread once more across Spain's wild country. In 2002, only 94 breeding-age individuals were left anywhere on Earth. By 2013, that figure had climbed to 309. A predator population cannot more than triple if the ground below it still cannot feed it. So the lynx's own comeback doubled as living evidence that rabbit numbers and the wider system were functioning again. What few expected was that lynx and rabbits would not be the only winners. Studies in Matichel also logged a rebound in red-legged partridges once fox and mongoose pressure eased. That mattered enormously because many release sites sat on private estates managed to hold rabbits and partridges for hunting. Early on, some landowners worried the lynx would help itself to game they prized. The data said the opposite. Lynx presence could actually shield those populations by keeping mid-sized predators in check. An animal long cast as a competitor slowly became an ally to the very people who had fought against it. By 2025, the total Iberian lynx population stood at no fewer than 2,663 animals. Among them, 542 breeding or territorial females, up from 470 in 2024. That same year, Cabaneros National Park recorded its first lynx litter since the reintroduction work began. That milestone matters because an animal walking out of a crate cannot be counted as a victory. Real success arrives only when a lynx accepts its new ground, holds a territory, finds a mate, and raises young. The IUCN shifted the species from endangered to vulnerable, a landmark in conservation history. But vulnerable is not the same as safe. Reaching favorable conservation status will still require somewhere near 750 breeding females. In all honesty, the Iberian lynx still faces threats, and they are heavier than most people imagine. The biggest today is not the rifle, but the roads slicing through its range. In 2024, Spain and Portugal logged 214 lynx deaths. Of those, 162, some 75%, came from collisions with vehicles. By 2025, road deaths had climbed to 212, close to 8 in every 10 documented fatalities. As the population grows, young lynx must leave their birthplaces to hunt for mates and open territory. One cat may range across dozens of kilometers, which means crossing motorways, country lanes, and land shaped entirely by people. Underpasses, funnel fencing, and wildlife crossings are going in, but the population is spreading faster than the infrastructure meant to protect it. The second threat is too small for the human eye. The RHDV2 virus once drove rabbit numbers down 80% in Donana and 75% in Andujar, cutting successful lynx breeding by around 65%. Castilla-La Mancha now holds close to 46% of Spain's lynx, yet its rabbit populations remain fragile. One outbreak in the wrong place at the wrong moment could unravel a recovery built over decades. Friction with people has not disappeared either. Poisoning and illegal killing still happen where enforcement is thin. In Andalusia, though, 20 years of dogged investigation and prosecution have cut wildlife poisoning cases by more than 90%. Maybe the deepest change is in what the lynx is worth to society. In 1953, a lynx carcass fetched 3.75 pesetas. In 2019, after a hunter shot a GPS-collared female called Nenufar and insisted he had taken her for a fox, the court ordered him to pay 100,800 euros in damages and barred him from hunting for 3 years. The same animal, 7 decades apart, had gone from something the state paid you to destroy to a symbol the law was determined to defend. Coming back to the man at the center of all this, Francisco Palomares, the most important thread in his research was never a single flash of insight. It was the way one scientific question slowly rewrote how people saw an entire landscape. For years, the lynx was one problem to be solved. Rabbits were a second problem to be repaired. Foxes and mongooses were handled as their own threats, while habitat, disease, and roads were parceled out to unrelated projects. But nature has never sorted itself into tidy lists. The lynx eats rabbits, yet it also suppresses the other predators that eat rabbits. Rabbits are prey, and they are also the architects of the vegetation and the soil beneath it. A virus can erase the food supply in a handful of seasons. Roads can split apart populations only recently stitched together. Every strand pulls on all the others. Which is why this achievement belongs to no one scientist, Palomares included. It is the product of decades of research, captive breeding, monitoring, legal protection, and cooperation between governments, landowners, and local communities. They brought the lynx back to rescue a vanishing species. What came back with it was an ecological order the land had lost long ago. So what do you think? Should we keep managing every species on its own, or is it enough to put back the one missing piece and let nature settle the rest? Drop your thoughts in the comments and subscribe as we keep digging into more surprising stories of ecological recovery.